Ladies and gentlemen, our referee has called a stop to this contest, declaring the winner by knockout and new MMA show! Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting round of and new MMA show. I am your MC, Michael Hansen, and I do all kinds of grandiose things with microphones because I am a ring announcer and MMA cage announcer. And I am joined this week, as I always am, by my two buddies who bring MMA punditry to new heights. Introducing first, on the left side of your screens, he's wearing all navy in an awesome snapback Yankees hat. From New York, Mark Priaulx. What's going on, buddy?
I love that I get a rundown on my outfit every week, and Omar never gets a mention. It's just like, and here's Omar. He's a great guy. Here's Mark. His shirt is blue. His pants. You can see a bit of them.
Eventually, I'll get to a point with my setup where you'll actually see what I'm wearing. Maybe that'll help Mike.
We got to talk about Omar's new high and tight haircut when we intro him.
That's
but
right.
Anyway, all is well. Nothing else to say. Let's get the damn thing going.
Okay, and introducing next on the right side of your screens from Florida with the high and tight, the Nicaraguan nightmare with the speed bag in the back. The heavy bag. Omar Artola. What's up, buddy?
What's going on? This is Hair by Fran, bitches. If you're in the Bradenton area, Ruskin area, you hit me up, dog. Yeah, man, listen. Turns out, saw Last of the Mohicans. As it turns out, that movie is completely fucked. That is a messed up movie. I have never seen scalps get ripped off before, so that was new for me.
It's a serious movie.
Yeah.
And my real take on it is the ending of that movie is fucking ridiculous. Uncas should have just waited the 15 minutes. It was like 10 minutes that apparently Daniel Day-Lewis and now the geriatric Last Mohican have went in there and wrecked like 15 dudes by themselves. Uncas couldn't take one dude out by himself.
But does he know they're coming? I can't
minutes.
Remember the movie.
You know what? Wait the 10 minutes. It was the
But
plan.
he knows
y'all were
they're coming?
together. He should have. He should have. They were all together before Daniel Day-Lewis tried to pull that rescue attempt that went left. That was a terrible plan.
Yeah.
But regardless, Uncas gets like murdered. It was like Uncas has never fought a day in his life. Gets chucked over the cliff. Like if it was like in Black Panther. If you've seen Black Panther, it was like the same shit. Okay? And then that poor little white girl had to figure out what she was going to do in that moment. Okay? Was she going to go with these Native Americans who were not going to treat her nice? Or was she going to jump off the cliff?
Hey, man. Spoilers, bro. Spoilers.
I think
this movie's like 40 years old. Yeah.
This girl just looks down, looks like Cain Velasquez in his mugshot, spoilers, and just jumps off the cliff.
Seriously.
So you enjoyed the movie?
You enjoyed it overall?
It was a ride I'm not getting back on. It was a good time
on you.
But I can't watch that shit again. That was wild.
Like I said,
are you glad you took the time to watch it?
Yes, it was a great. It was a well-made movie for sure.
And now, when fighters come out to the Last of the Mohicans song, you can appreciate it because that's a thing, and you never knew it was a thing.
Silver lining.
The more you know. Okay, all right, folks. Let's get back on track. I do not have a alcoholic beverage tonight because of a very lame reason. I bit my lip really bad, and everything hurts now to eat and drink. So just water for Mikey tonight.
Who are you, my 4-year-old son?
Hey, man, I have big teeth. Well, folks, we have quite a bit to get to on this episode. We have recaps from UFC Fight Night and Bellator from this past weekend. We're going to throw some fights into our lightning round. We're going to start, as we always do, with On the Marquee. We're going to find out who rose, who fell in our very own ranking system, the Priaulx Rankings. We're going to find out what's new inside the MMA sphere. Some juicy bits of news this week. Can't wait for that. And then we're going to look ahead to this coming weekend. Big pay-per-view, stacked card, UFC 272, Covington versus Masvidal. This fight's been coming for quite some time. A lot of bad blood, and we're going to get into it. And then we're going to end the show with a little bit of trivia, maybe.
Ooh.
before we get into any of that, number one, guys, please, if you know anybody in your life who loves MMA or even just boxing or any kind of combat sport and might not know about this show and you think they might like it, go ahead and share this video with them or share this podcast with them. However you're listening, however you're watching, it's easy. Be like, hey, thought about you, and here's this cool podcast you might like. They'll be like, oh, wow, thank you so much. Subscribe. Boom. Growth. Thank you so much. Otherwise, go ahead and hit the thumbs up on this video. Hit the bell so that you never miss an episode yourselves. If you want audio only, we got you. Find us wherever you get your podcasts, of course, and find us on social media at @AndNewMMA Show. @new_MMA Show. Don't forget the underscore. Thanks for coming.
I feel like you had a little Bob Ross going on there.
Yeah.
You're like, go ahead and share this with someone you know.
Happy little like.
If you want to put a little bush here, go ahead and put that bush.
All right, gentlemen, let's get right into our first segment on the marquee. This week, the name on the marquee has got to be Islam Makhachev, who this past weekend at the UFC, at UFC Fight Night, Makhachev versus Green defeated Bobby King Green by TKO at 3 minutes and 23 seconds into round number 1. Mark, let me start with you. What was your reaction? Is this what you expected? Were you hoping for something else to happen? Talk to me.
That was a bit of a letdown, huh? I mean,
Yeah.
he ate him.
Is anybody surprised?
Like,
No.
I'll tell you what, I used to resist the Khabib Islam comparisons, and fairly at the time, I believe, because I used to say that watching Khabib always felt like a lion just like devouring its prey. And Islam had been in like real fights. Like, yes, he was the better guy, but he would go to decisions, there'd be back and forths. So it didn't have that same feeling. So I always disagreed when people said that. But the Islam that just took out Dan Hooker and Bobby Green back to back in a combined 5 minutes feels exactly like that. Like, he is 100% peaking right now. He's the best we've ever seen him. It sounds like he's going to go straight to a title shot. And at this point now, I think the Khabib comparisons are fair. Are we going to get to the same level? Who knows? But I mean, he looks just like Nurmagomedov. I mean, you watch his fight, you're like, yeah, that's the same guy. So I don't know. It sounds like he's going to get a title shot. Apparently Dana said that to Khabib, according to Khabib. So it feels a little weird, considering it was off 2 late notice replacements, and considering he probably is going to have to wait until like September by the time someone's ready to fight him, which feels like a long time, but sounds like that's what's happening here. And, it's hard to say he hasn't earned it. I feel a little weird about the lack of top 10 opponents, but the way he is winning and the fact that there's not another clear name to be like, no, it should be this guy, kind of makes you feel like it's Islam's time.
Omar, what about you when you watched this past weekend's main event? To what degree are you disappointed in Bobby Green, and how impressed were you with Makhachev?
I'm not disappointed in Bobby Green. Bobby Green was asked to pull off a miracle. I mean, it wasn't fair to expect that much from Bobby Green. He had fought like 2 weeks prior. First of all, he should get all the credit in the world for cutting weight as quickly as he did in the first place. And realistically, on paper, there was no reason for him to win that fight. I wanted him to win that fight. It would have been dope to see him win that fight. It would have changed the course of things. It would have made things super interesting, and who knows what would have happened, him possibly getting a title shot, maybe one fight down the road where, we weren't even considering Bobby Green for a title at all. It just would have made things very, very interesting. Instead, Islam just kind of slapped us all back to reality and said, just head out of the clouds. That, this is not how that works. And there's levels to this shit. And Islam is on that level. You know what I mean? You can't really deny it. Objectively, you can't deny it. So, I mean, the reality is I think, Mark, I don't know if you remember what the lines were, but or what the lines are now, I should say, because we talked about it a few days ago, and they're already putting lines up for him versus Oliveira and Gaethje, and Oliveira was like plus 450, something like that, and Makhachev was minus 900.
No. No, it wasn't like that. Islam was minus 4 something, and Charles was plus 3 something.
No.
Yeah, dude.
No. Oh, that was the Bobby Green fight. You're right.
Yeah, you're thinking of Bobby Green.
I'm thinking of the Bobby Green fight. You're right.
But your point remains. Islam was a 4-1 favorite against Charles Oliveira and against Gaethje, both of them, which is
crazy
insanity.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to say, especially having considered how dominant Gaethje and Charles Oliveira have been lately. And Islam, to be honest, Islam's dominance, the way that Mark has been saying, is relatively recent. Dominant nonetheless, but relatively recent. Like Oliveira has been dominant now for a little while, and Gaethje has looked like a fucking world beater for at least the pandemic, if not a little bit before. So it's interesting to see kind of how everybody's reacting to Islam. I just can't really say it's completely unwarranted.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Makhachev was like, there will be no miracles tonight. This is really my night in the office. Thanks for coming. Yeah. And that's that. So,
I did love getting Bobby Green's insight though into how Makhachev works, which seems very like it's almost like listening to somebody explain how a magic trick works. Like it looks amazing when you're sitting back and you're watching it happen, and then somebody tells you how the trick happens, and then you're like, oh well, that's not really that amazing in the end. But it still kind of is, right? Because somebody still has to make that application of that simple tactic. And the reality is Makhachev is very good, just like Khabib was, which I'm assuming is where he got it from. He's very, very good at going step by step, which a lot of people, and we were talking about wild people last week, people that like to kind of roll the dice and flip the coin and kind of get into these scrambles and these crazy things. You won't really see Islam in those kind of scrambles because he's too controlled and he's too step by step. So as soon as he gets people down, he's immediately working for the half guard. He's not necessarily waiting for a reaction from somebody. He's pushing the pace. He's pushing the action. He's passing. Whatever happens, he adjusts to it, but it's step by step. He's not doing anything else until he gets that half guard. Yep. And when he has that half guard, he has that half guard. And it continues. He starts moving to side control. He starts moving over to side control little by little. And it's the little by little that makes the difference.
He really compartmentalizes. Yeah, he really compartmentalizes the fight. It's like lots of little battles in there.
And by the time you realize that he's in mount, you can't get out of his mount, and the fight's over.
And he's big, man. He's big at lightweight.
He's
real big.
Strong. That's the thing that I feel like has been consistent between people that have fought him and have fought Khabib is this ungodly strength that everybody seems to believe that they have. Like Michael Johnson. If you go back and watch the Michael Johnson fight, Michael Johnson looks like he just fought 5 bears. Like the way he describes his strength is crazy.
Yeah.
To me, that's a testament to what their technique is, though, because what are the chances that two guys with the same technique who trained together, who came up together, happen to be the 2 strongest lightweights we've ever seen?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that's what it is. I don't think they are the 2 strongest lightweights we've ever seen. I think their technique makes them feel twice as strong as they are. And the technique is so good that guys are like, what is happening right now? Like, why can't I get this dude off me?
Their wrist control is very, very underrated. Like the wrist control that they have in their fights is not talked about enough.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's talk about where these guys go from here. Might not be a whole lot to talk about. I mean, especially on the winner side, on Makhachev's side. Mark, let me send it back to you. Makhachev finally is calling out in terms of, he has title shot aspirations now that he's being vocal about. So do you think he's ready to challenge for the title right now?
Yeah, I mean, he was vocal after Hooker too. He's been kind of going for it for a little bit now. If it was up to me, we would spend the next month or so calling Beneil Dariush, saying, how's that ankle feeling? He apparently got an opinion from 4 doctors. One of them said surgery. The other 3 said he did not need surgery. So he's going with that. He's trying to rehab it on his own. So if it's me, I'm checking in on him. I'm trying to see if there's any way to make that fight. You know, the title fight's in May. I'm trying to see if there's any way to still do that in like June, something like that. But that's me. That's just because I wish that fight could still happen. I wish Islam could, as much as, we just said, it feels like he's kind of earned it because of the dominance, but I would just love to see him beat a top contender so I could be like, all right, he's the guy. Mm-hmm. But I doubt that is the direction we're going. It certainly sounds like Islam is going to wait and that he is going to be the guy here getting the Oliveira Gaethje winner. So that's what I expect.
I mean, if we get Makhachev versus Oliveira, that will be quite the concession. I'm sorry, consolation to having never gotten Oliveira versus Khabib.
I agree. Literally my dream fight, and I will be somewhat satisfied to get
Yeah.
to see
Yeah.
Islam.
Omar, what about you? Who would you want to see Islam match up with next?
Yeah. I mean, realistically, just kind of the fight we never got with Khabib and Oliveira is also the fight we never got with Khabib and Tony, and like Dariush and Makhachev was probably going to be the closest thing to that at this point, especially because I don't know exactly what Tony Ferguson's next steps are going to be at this point.
I don't know about Tony.
Still a lot of Chandler rumors.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with it. I feel like Ferguson needs to bounce back. Otherwise, I don't really see the point of him still fighting because he's gotten his ass beat in the last 2 fights he's had.
Yes, he has.
But yeah, I mean, Makhachev at this point needs to. I would like him to fight the loser of the championship fight personally, but I guess who would you put in front of Makhachev? I guess is really
I was just going to ask you, who would you give to the winner then?
Right. So I guess that's really where the issue comes into play. It does seem a little premature to give him a title fight. I feel like he has one more fight, but but where they have him right now, short of Dustin Poirier at this point, or going back and fighting somebody like Michael Chandler, there's nothing else. There's nothing else to really give him.
What about Poirier? Why wouldn't he want to fight Poirier?
I don't think
Poirier's not going to take the fight.
I don't think Poirier would want the fight necessarily. Then again, it is Poirier, so I mean
Why wouldn't Poirier take the fight?
I just don't know if he wants to get
trying to
beat
fight Nate
3 times in his career.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Just one more rear naked choke to add to his fucking wall of shame. Poor kid. Jesus.
All right, what about Bobby Green? Mark, let me send it back to you. How do you put on your matchmaker hat, how do you treat Bobby Green coming off of this short notice fight loss?
So I've seen way more talk than I'd like about Bobby Green getting like an Alexander Hernandez or a Drew Dober. And I'm over here like, what are we doing, people? Like, we were just talking about Bobby Green getting a ranked opponent, maybe being even in a main event slot. He doesn't suddenly lose all that just because he stepped up on 1 week's notice to fight Islam Makhachev. So, like, I mean, the memories in MMA are very short sometimes. So I don't get it. And I'm talking about on legitimate websites, like with their ideas of like matchmaking that I'm saying, oh, Alexander Hernandez. Like, what? What are we doing? So personally, I think that this is the perfect time for the fight me and Omar both said we liked a couple weeks back, which is Brad Riddell, because now you have both of them coming off a loss. Riddell's a savage. Green's a savage. They're both high action. Never have a boring fight. Would be a great one. Put on a show. Go that route.
Love it. Omar, looking at the landscape of lightweight, who would you want to see Bobby Green match up with next?
Stylistically, first of all, it's rude to even consider anything outside of the top 15 at this point. The boy stepped up. He was beating ass before he got into this loss. I don't think he should be punished for doing what he did and saving, frankly, a card that without him, I think would have been kind of messed up.
Yeah, for sure.
So I definitely love the Brad Riddell fight. Stylistically, that fight is just fireworks from beginning to end. If you've ever seen the Lando Venata fight against him, if you've ever seen the Rafael Fiziev fight against him,
that was a great fight.
That's basically you're going to get around the same thing, skill for skill wise. So I mean, I would love that fight. I would settle for a Diego Ferreira fight just because again I think he needs an opportunity to crack into the top 15. But Brad Riddell, I think that's a perfect fight for everybody. Everybody wins.
Yeah. Bobby Green versus Brad Riddell, I believe, is what would scientifically be called a banger.
Indeed. Indeed. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Unless you guys want to say anything else about either Bobby Green or Islam Makhachev.
Let's do it.
All right, let's move on. Congrats one last time to Islam Makhachev for being on the marquee this week. Moving over to the Bellator side of things, this past weekend at Bellator 275, in the main event, Gegard Mousasi retains his Bellator middleweight title by defeating Austin the Gentleman Vanderford at 1 minute and 25 seconds of the very first round. Omar, let me start with you. Mousasi shows his greatness yet again. He dispatches Vanderford with relative quickness, getting him out of there in the first. What was your take on the fight?
I mean, I think everybody kind of heard our frustration last week with this matchmake in general, the position that Mousasi is in at this point when it comes to that division. And this is kind of what we all expected. Like I did not expect anything different than what happened in that fight. In fact, I probably expected less striking. I thought Vanderford would try to take it to the ground almost immediately. And he was standing with him a lot longer than I thought he should, obviously, and he kind of paid for it. But the reality was he didn't have any paths to victory, so it really wouldn't have mattered where he went. I think the real thing that got me a little annoyed was Gegard Mousasi has been beating ass in Bellator for quite some time, but this was the fight where he decided to get gangster on everybody and be like, I'm now the greatest middleweight in the world. Like, really? You fought way better guys that you should have been like talking that shit about, and this was the one that he decided to get crazy. Like, I don't know if you guys remember when Valentina just all of a sudden started being like, stop fucking with me, like I'm a gangster now. That's what I feel like Gegard Mousasi just pulled out in the Austin Vanderford fight, which was like a weird flex, to be honest. But
in his defense, he said he was feeling that way before the fight. He said he's never said it before because he has never in his own head felt that much confidence before. And going into this fight for the first time, he had been feeling like, you know what, I'm the best middleweight on the planet.
Yeah, that I don't even know if that's like a testament to just his mental awareness or like a jab at Austin Vanderford at the end of the day. But Gegard Mousasi has always been one of the best, if not, arguably the best middleweight that's essentially been around since OG times now at this point. I think it's crazy that this is where his career is at and that we can't see him against people like Israel Adesanya and like the real top 10 of the world in middleweight. Seems like a waste.
Well, Mark, what was your take?
Yeah. Bellator's middleweight division is just shamefully empty, which sucks because, like you said, we're kind of wasting this guy. But yeah, man, Gegard Mousasi, people, the dream catcher. And he certainly snatched Austin Vanderford's dreams violently in about 1 minute. So, you can't be more brutally dominant than that. He treated Austin Vanderford exactly how the arguable best middleweight alive should be treating Austin Vanderford. He let everyone know that Vanderford did not belong in there with him. And then, as Omar mentioned, the post-fight, he takes the mic. He says he's the best middleweight alive, which is not a very Gegard thing to do. He's never really been that guy. So, like I said, he kind of explained how he has finally reached a point where he's allowing himself in his own head to feel like, you know what, I am the best. Like, I don't have to be modest. I believe it, that I am the best. So it's cool to see. I mean, good for him. I have no problem with that. I love that he's feeling himself right now. But I was very disappointed after hearing that because I heard him say that and I was like, damn, is this guy trying to like lay the groundwork? Like maybe he only has a couple fights left. He's trying to like hype a potential like Izzy fight. Like people are going to hear that comment and say, oh, Izzy. And then I look and he has 5 fights left on his Bellator contract still. So that was a buzzkill. I mean, I guess he's going to be doing some fun things at light heavyweight potentially. But yeah, it's just a shame that we can't see this guy against better fighters, like Omar said.
Yeah. Sticking with you, Mark, in terms of Bellator's middleweight division being shamefully empty, Gegard, if he stays in Bellator, what would you see next for him in terms of his next title defense as the middleweight champ?
So honestly, the best middleweight in Bellator, not named Gegard Mousasi, is probably Anatoly Tokov, who just hasn't happened to fight Gegard yet. He hasn't been in Bellator that long. And that might be the next guy now at this point if he was to fight another middleweight, which is like, it's a better matchup than like John Salter or Austin Vanderford was. I would still pick Mousasi like easily. But it's at least got some interesting angles to it. He's good, but I don't think that's what they're going to do. It sounds like he's going to head up to light heavyweight, where they're going to do a champ fight of Mousasi against the winner of the Grand Prix. So either it would be Vadim Nemkov or Corey Anderson. And honestly, that's a really cool fight. I'd be super hyped for that fight. I would have to imagine those odds, whichever guy it is, are close with Mousasi, maybe even being the dog simply because of the size, especially if it's Corey Anderson, factoring in the wrestling that he could bring to the table. So yeah, I'm here for that one. That's a cool one, and definitely an opportunity for Mousasi to further cement his legacy if he could ever beat one of those guys. So at least we got that to look forward to.
Omar, anything to add on Mousasi's next opponent?
Yeah, I mean, he kind of nailed it on the head. The guy's record at this point is 30-2 in Anatoly Tokov. I mean, that's definitely arguably the best record that's there apart from Lorenz Larkin, and I think Lorenz Larkin dies.
That'd be cool too.
It would be cool.
But yeah, man. I mean, that's probably going to be the best bet. Looking at the middleweight division, I just don't see anybody that's really going. That I don't see a name on here that I go, damn. That's a hard fight for Mousasi. I just don't. Anything can happen. We always talk about it, right? Anything's possible. But on paper, I just don't see
anything's possible. Sorry, had to include that Kevin Garnett reference once you said that.
Yeah,
automatic trigger. Sorry, I'm sorry to cut you off. Keep going.
No, you're good. I was like I said, I just don't see anybody here doing anything to Mousasi. I just don't.
Okay, Vanderford. Looking at middleweight Bellator. Yeah, go ahead.
I would take him and put him against the other man that Mousasi just beat in John Salter. At least if Vanderford could beat Salter, it kind of legitimizes him a bit. Whereas I feel like he kind of got to this point without beating anyone like that. So at least that would kind of get him some respect if he could beat a John Salter.
Okay. Cool. Umar?
I would agree. I mean, just looking at Vanderford's record right now, he hasn't really beaten a ton of guys in the top 10. Of the Bellator division. He beat Fabian Edwards, and I think that's what really vaulted him up to where he's at. But he has work to do in the middleweight division. I mean, he hasn't really done anything to really have a number 2 spot there at this point. So
yeah, for sure. Okay, well, hey, congrats to Gegard Mousasi for yet another victory in his illustrious career and another title defense of his Bellator middleweight title. But now let's hop back into the UFC side of things, back to this past weekend's UFC Fight Night, Makhachev versus Green. In the not co-main event, which probably should have been the co-main event, the three of us on this here show, we all kind of agreed that it should have been, because this was a fight in the lightweight division that really got our hair on the back of our necks to kind of, stand up on end. That being Arman Tsarukyan versus Joel Alvarez, and Tsarukyan defeated Yoel Alvarez by TKO in round number 2. Omar, let me start with you this time. What was your take on Tsarukyan getting it done over Alvarez?
So I don't remember. I know I had Alvarez picked. I think we all had Alvarez picked, or at least me and Mark did.
Mike went Tsarukyan.
Mike did go Tsarukyan. Yeah,
round 2 TKO. I think Mike said. To be honest,
I mean that performance was scary. To be honest, it was a terrifying performance, a dominant performance from Tsarukyan. Definitely one of those y'all must have forgot performances, because I don't remember him being so goddamn violent. He shattered that kid's nose. It looked like his nose was trying to come out of his face at one point. It was absolutely bloody. He was covered. Everybody was covered in blood by the end of that fight. Yeah, and just, I mean, he made beating the hell out of Joel Alvarez look easier than it really should have. And people in that division should 100% be on notice that Tsarukyan is here.
Mark?
It's funny. I have a little bit of a different take. So I don't want to take, how do I say it? I don't want to take anything away from Tsarukyan. He went out and did his job 10 out of 10 perfectly. So all credit to him. Great win, all that. But I almost find it a little bit tough to evaluate just how good he is coming out of that for a few reasons. First off, Alvarez was just about fully responsible for the takedown, the initial takedown, the way he swung and kind of lost his balance. So that was a little odd. Then the cut happens. Of course, it's from a great Tsarukyan elbow, but the cut was so much blood, like an abnormal amount of blood, that it immediately changed the entire fight, and it made Alvarez far less dangerous. He couldn't even see. He gets out of the round. The second takedown that led to the finish is because Tsarukyan shot, and Alvarez, who already can't see at all, was like, you know what? Let me jump guillotine. Maybe I get a hero moment here and I escape this fight before I go freaking blind. So he jumps guillotine, gets taken down again. Obviously, that doesn't work. Then he's on the ground. He's just in an utterly miserable state. He can't see even what blows are coming. He has no idea. So, yes, it's a great win for Arman, but it's tough for me to decide exactly what I should take away from that about how good he is, because I can't get past well, if that blood never happened, like, yeah, it would have been a big shot to the nose. He would have won round 1, but I'm like, who knows what even would have happened in round 2 if it wasn't for Joel Alvarez being blinded by disgusting blood. So, I give him credit, but I'm a little bit like, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I thought that when I was watching it, that cut, and it, like to your point, the elbow changed the whole fight. I mean, credit to him. It's what he kind of meant to do. It was a slashing.
I know he did it. I agree, he did it.
But man, that was a bad cut. I thought the cut was going to end the fight.
So did I. You don't see that much blood.
Yeah, I mean, that's as bad as short of knocking somebody out cold with an elbow. That's as bad as elbows get. I
mean, he was doing these.
Dude, it was on the he like split the bridge of his nose completely open. Like the bone ripped his skin open. That's what that's where that shit was.
Yep.
It was a terrible elbow. Like yeah, that was as bad as it gets.
Yeah.
All right. Let's put our matchmaker hats back on. Mark, let me start with you. Where do you put Tsarukyan after this win?
So he has been bringing up Gregor Gillespie's name, which I think would be really interesting to see. Just the matchup of the wrestling alone. So I'm fine with that one. But it also wouldn't shock me if the UFC ends up matching Gillespie with Rafael Fiziev. That was a rumor before Fiziev got booked against RDA. And now that Fiziev has fallen out of the RDA fight, and RDA is obviously fighting someone else, and Fiziev needs an opponent when he comes back, it wouldn't shock me if they go back to that rumored Gillespie booking. So if it's not going to be Arman versus Gillespie, then I also think you could do Arman versus Mateusz Gamrot, which similar ranked guy. I think that'd be a cool fight. So either one of those, sign me right up.
Nice. Omar, what's your take?
Yeah, personally, I want to see Tsarukyan versus Gamrot. That looks like two pieces of steel that are about to just beat the shit out of each other. Like they both have looked so dominant and just so strong in their performances that to see them up against each other, I really just want to see what happens when they finally clash. I think it'd be very interesting.
Well, Mark, either way, it's ranked opponent 100%.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, for the record, the UFC has him at number 12 at this point, so it definitely needs to stay within that realm.
Okay. And Omar, staying with you, give me a name for Joel Alvarez. Where would you want him to go from here?
Let's see. Let me look at the MMA rankings.
I'll give you one while we wait, if I may.
Yeah.
I think I'd say Magomed Mustafayev. He's a guy in a similar spot to Alvarez. He had beaten Rafael Fiziev, which obviously is a huge win, but then he lost to Brad Riddell. And now he hasn't fought in a while because he was supposed to fight Demiris Magulov back in the fall, and Magulov came in way overweight, and they scratched the fight. So he's a guy just like Alvarez, who's kind of like just outside the rankings looking in. He's now been waiting. He needs a fight. I think that's a good one. One of those guys kind of gets buzz right back on their name from winning that matchup.
Okay.
Who did you just say?
Magomed Mustafayev.
Magomed Mustafayev. I actually wouldn't mind seeing him against. I guess we're.
Who jumps out at you?
Alexander Hernandez jumps out at me, but it just seems like such a step back, to be honest.
Yeah, I almost thought that myself, and then I thought the same thing.
Yeah,
there you go.
The thing is stylistically, it's a super interesting fight. I just don't know if it does what it needs to do for Alvarez specifically moving up the ladder. But the reality is they're both coming off a loss. Alexander Hernandez has kind of been up and down, but I still think it'd be a good fight, to be honest.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm chugging this whiskey tonight. I'm going to be drinkless by the time we're halfway through this show.
I know. I just fucking chug my water.
Gonna need some water here.
This is doing nothing for me. No buzz. All right, let's throw the rest of these UFC Fight Night fights into our lightning round. So if you folks don't know, our lightning round is our non-game show in which I challenge Mark and Omar to give me their lightningest takes on the outcomes of these fights. Here we go. Lightning round, go. Wellington Turman, round 2 submission of Misha Cirkunov. Mark, go first.
Firstly, that was a sick first round. Both of those guys looked like they were in big trouble at different points of that first round. Secondly, how easy did Wellington Turman make that armbar look? Like, he did it in a way that makes you say, like, well, why doesn't everyone who's on their back just put someone in an armbar? Like it looks like the easiest thing that anyone has ever did. I still don't really understand how it happened so easily, but great win for him. And middleweight does not seem to be working out for Misha Cirkunov.
Omar, Turman subs Cirkunov in round 2. What's your take?
Yeah, that armbar was scary the way he just caught it so quickly, and not to mention how big that dude looks, and for him to be able to have that dexterity at that size. Turman might be a problem, man. He's got the right coach behind him, and he looks like he's got the skills to go with it.
Can we do a quick note? I'm becoming this guy on this show, but on the note of how big he looks, my man is pimpled the F up. And all I could think about was, are we sure that guy's natural? Because
okay, game on. Priscilla Cachoeira, unanimous decision over Jin Young Kim. Omar, go first.
I'm interested to hear how Mark had this scored, because I got to be honest, I need to go back and I need to watch it again. But in the moment, this was not a split decision where we're like, it was a tough fight. Both of them. This felt like a robbery to me. This should have been Young Kim's fucking fight, and it was not. And I'm a little in my feels about it, I got to say.
Okay, Mark, what's your take?
I agree. I will say this. It was a hard fight to score. Like, just the way that it was like Kim's kind of volume against like the crazy power of Cachoeira. It was kind of hard to score. But Cachoeira did not win that fight. And if I'm honest, I'm not even sure she won any of the rounds. Like, they were all somewhat close, but I kind of think Kim won all 3 rounds. So
yeah.
I don't know. It was a war. It didn't feel like the worst like robbery ever because it was a war, but I think that Kim won that fight.
It felt like a robbery to me just because of how bad of a war it was. And Kim was piecing that girl up the entire fight. The third round was what had me crazy. I know this is lightning, Mike. I'm sorry. She was piecing her up the whole fight. The third round, piecing her up. The Cachoeira is walking forward with fucking hands in the air.
She was blocking punches with her face.
Yeah, in the face. How I don't understand how they get. I don't get it.
Yeah, it should have been Kim's fight. I don't know.
Arman Petrosian, split decision over Gregory Rodriguez. Omar, lightning take.
Okay. This one wasn't a robbery so much in my opinion. I did have it for Rodriguez, but it was a close fight. But I did have it for Rodriguez 2-1.
Mark, Petrosian gets it done by split decision over Rodriguez. What's your take?
I thought this one went the right way. Rodriguez turned it up big in round 3, but I scored each of the first 2 for Petrosian. And I just want to say that guy is a tough dude, man. He would absorb like big damage from Rodriguez, and he would have like a shitty 30 seconds where it was like, man, he looks like he's fucked up. And then he would just like shake it and be like, all right, I'm back. I'm fresh. Like back to throwing like dancing leg kicks and shit. So he's a tough guy. But yeah, I thought he got the first 2 rounds.
Okay, Ignacio Bahamondes, round 3, submission over Rongzhu. Mark, what's your take?
What a showcase for Ignacio Bahamondes. I mean, Rongzhu was tough and clearly skilled, but Bahamondes put it on him in every single way leading up to snatching that choke. He's very Joel Alvarez-esque. Same division, same size advantages, same style, even with the striking and the like opportunistic subs. Better result on this particular night. But yeah, he might be named to watch.
Omar, Bahamondes gets it done by submission in the 3rd over Zhu. What's your take?
Yeah, I'm really happy to see Bahamondes has more to his arsenal, than just his striking, because his striking has been great to watch. His kicks have been phenomenal. He's been kicking everybody to hell, frankly. So it's great to see him kind of have those kind of submission skills in his back pocket, especially to pull out during a performance like that. But he busted up Zhu's face all the way leading up to that Bravo choke. It was fantastic.
Okay. Josiane Nunez, unanimous decision over Ramona Pascual. Omar, go first.
Yeah, it was a good fight. I didn't really take away too much from it. It was a solid fight.
Okay. Mark, what's your take? Nunez over Pascual.
Josiane Nunez is a violent woman. Like, Pascual was tough as shit, which was really all she had in there. But Nunez is a bantamweight who was fighting a big featherweight on late notice, and the power translated, and it was no problem. So yeah, she's intriguing.
I didn't know about the weight difference.
Oh yeah, that's why they looked so different.
Yeah.
Terrence McKinney, round 1 submission over Forest Ziem from France. Mark, what's your take?
Man, it did not look like Terrence McKinney had the angle for that rear naked choke. And Bisping thought the same and then looked very silly when the tap came 1 second after he said that. But a lot of quick W's for Terrence McKinney. Like even going from pre-UFC, I think that's like 5 straight fights that were inside of 3 minutes that he finished dudes. And we're learning that he's very well-rounded as well. So yeah, that might be a guy.
For sure. Omar, McKinney getting it done in the first over the Frenchman. What's your take?
Yeah, man. I mean, what can you say? McKinney's is making a statement. He came in. He's now, has a record during his UFC debut. Put it on Frivola, steamrolled Frivola, if you would, and now has a fantastic first round sub against Ziem. And I mean, who doesn't want to watch the kid fight again? He looks like he's going to be a problem. Yep. Who knows what we'll see? But so far, it's looking like a problem.
And what a great nickname, T-Rex, but Rex is spelled W-R-E-C-K-S.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good.
Okay, 2 more. Jonathan Martinez, unanimous decision over Alejandro Perez. Omar, go first.
Yeah, Alejandro Perez is one of my, one of the tough Latin America boys. So I have I'm not going to pick against them, but it was a tough fight to watch because Perez got pieced up pretty good in that fight. Right decision. Just not the best performance from Perez, but a great performance from Martinez.
Okay, Mark, what is your take on Jonathan the Dragon Martinez getting done over Perez?
Martinez can kick, boy.
Yeah.
Sheesh. He was lighting Perez up. But yeah, he won. The majority of round 1 got dropped at the end of it. So even if you want to give that round to Perez, I'll allow it. But Martinez definitely won the next 2. It was his fight. He controlled it with the kicks. He boxed when he needed to box. He was the better guy in there. Good one for him.
Nice. Okay, last one. Ramiz Brahimaj, round 1 submission. A lot of submissions on this fight night card over Michael Gilmore. Mark, bring us home.
Great pronunciation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Brahimaj just ran over Michael Gilmore, which is what I expected. I actually bet him to win by sub, so that was nice. And parlayed it with Martinez to win by decision, so that was extra nice. But anyway, yeah, Michael Gilmore is not UFC caliber. I think we can say that at this point.
This is the same kid that came in as an alternate for Tough, right? This is the same.
Correct.
Like I don't want to be mean, but at the same time, he didn't look great in Tough. He didn't look great during his MMA debut or his UFC debut.
Right. They let him drop to welterweight. Apparently, he's normally a welterweight, so that's what he did here. And now I'm sure it's hit the road.
Like I'm not against him. Like if he goes somewhere and like comes back as a monster, fantastic. But like being in the UFC at this point is a serious disservice to his career. He's gonna screw up any record that he ever thought he was gonna have.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but like eye tests, he's one of the most eye test fighters I can recall in the last 5 years where I was like, that guy should not be here.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll give you that.
Sorry. Omar, I guess that was your take, or you want to have one last word?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Mike. I had that eye test during Tough. I don't think that's a great thing when you see it during Tough.
Okay. All right. Well, that just about does it for this week's lightning round. Thank you, gentlemen. And now, folks, let's put a bow on UFC Fight Night Makhachev versus Green by finding out who has risen. I always feel really weird when I say it has risen because it's very religious. Who rose and who fell in our very own ranking system, the Priaulx Rankings. Mark, take it away.
Oh. All right. That was nice. We got 3 risers and 2 fallers this week. We will work down the card as we have been doing. The first riser, Wellington Turman, goes from number 37 to number 27 in my middleweight rankings. Nice jump there, beating a guy in Serkinov who maybe hasn't had a ton of success in his couple fights since dropping to middleweight, but he's a guy who has wins over like Jimmy Crute, Nikita Krylov, excuse me. So yeah, I mean, that can't be dismissed, and it's a real nice win for Turman. So he jumps up to number 27 at middleweight. Next one, Arman Tsarukyan. He goes from number 24 in my lightweight rankings to number 12. If I remember right, the UFC had already jumped him there prior to this fight even.
That's correct.
I was waiting, I wasn't doing it until he earned it, and now he has earned it. So he moves to number 12 in my lightweight ranks. Last one for the risers is Arman Petrosian. He was making his debut. He jumps right into the middleweight mix, number 38 in my middleweight rankings by beating a guy in Rodriguez who was 2-0 in the UFC so far and had looked good. So he kind of jumps right into the pack. The fallers, I mentioned Misha Serkinov. This is a guy who was like ranked almost his whole time at light heavyweight, like lower end of the rankings, but he was there. Like I just said, he beat, Jimmy Crute, Nikita Krylov. He drops to middleweight and he's now 0-2. He's lost to some guys that you wouldn't have expected based on the name value. So I had already dropped him to 21. Now I've dropped him to 28 in my middleweight rankings. It doesn't seem like that move is working out for him. And the last faller is Alejandro Perez. He drops from number 31 to 37 in my bantamweight ranks. Just a bit of a drop, having lost 3 of his last 4 there for Perez. That is all.
Thank you, sir. That does it for our update on the Priaulx rankings. That is Mark's, if you're just joining us for the first time, that is Mark's very own ranking system.
If you're listening to this show and you enjoy the Priaulx rankings and you want to make me a website, please contact me.
Very nice. All right, boys, let's hop right into our next segment, which is Inside the MMA Sphere, where Omar takes us inside the MMA sphere.
No coincidental.
Welcome, guys.
Here we go, baby.
To the MMA sphere.
We got some juicy headlines this week.
Christ.
Yeah, so a lot of there's some stuff that's gone down. So let's jump into it. Cain Velasquez.
Oh, we're getting right into the good stuff.
Cain Velasquez done messed up, man. Cain Velasquez officially was arrested yesterday, I believe. Was it 2 days ago now? Officially, February 27th, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Midday in San Jose, California, for allegedly shooting a man with a real gun.
Oh my
God. And apparently the man has non-life-threatening injuries, but he was charged with attempted murder, and he's there arrested on no bail, so he's not going anywhere. As far as I know, he has a hearing tomorrow on Wednesday, so I guess we'll probably hear the next steps of whatever this is. But apparently, there's actually just something that was posted on the internet a little while ago. Apparently, it's going around that Cain chased down 2 men riding in a vehicle. One of them is accused of abuse of one of Cain's children at daycare.
I believe it's molestation.
Oh, dude, I just saw a relative. You said it was Cain's kid?
Yeah, I'm gonna
okay,
this I'm reading this as I'm saying it out loud. So let me
makes
let me
a
start
lot more
again.
sense now.
If it's
Cain apparently chased down 2 men in a vehicle, which is where this whole thing transpired. It officially, when we first heard about it, I thought it was a road rage incident that just had gotten out of control. But apparently he had chased down these 2 men riding in a vehicle. One of them is accused of abuse of one of Cain's children at daycare. The other person involved is the father of the alleged abuser. Cain shot the father of the alleged abuser.
Oh. How old is Cain's kid? Does it say?
It doesn't, but if it's daycare,
I mean, not like it fucking matters.
But daycare's got to be what, like
no, yeah, that's what I mean. It's a kid.
My kid is in a daycare, and they have everything from babies up to I think like 12.
Yeah, right.
Although I don't see many kids that old going in and out of the place. It's mostly like preschool age.
Yeah, it's probably a young kid. I mean, so I knew when I saw this morning, I was like, that we're gonna hear that there is a reason for this, and you can't have a better reason than that.
I will say, looking and Mike brought it up too, but when this all happened, they released his mugshot, and if you haven't seen the mugshot, I encourage you to go look at it because it's very interesting when you hear that you're being charged with attempted murder and you borderline look like you've got a smile on your face taking the mugshot.
He kind of has a smirk on his face,
right? And like originally, we were all like, did Cain like lose his shit real quick?
Right? Did he lose his mind? He snapped for some reason.
But to be honest, a lot of it is starting to make a little bit more sense now than it did a day ago. So I will say I didn't mean to laugh. If you are watching, I may have had a little smirk while they were talking, and the reason why is because some of the comments for this post are a little wild. one of them just said what we had been talking about earlier. Why didn't you you're Cain Velasquez. Why didn't you just get out and beat the shit out of the guy? And then somebody put he was probably injured. And
oh my God.
You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying?
For folks who might be listening, for folks who might be watching or listening who might not be that degree of deep into MMA, that's an MMA deep cut right there.
That's a deep cut, bro. There's a proper time and place for this kind of jokes.
Oh God, I can't pull it together.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that would have hit me there,
man.
But there it is. But okay, so on a more serious note, Cain is in some serious shit right now because this is in California. This is not in a state where
he's in the wrong state.
Yeah, this
Texas,
is not in a state where that stuff
tonight.
Kind of flies. So
yeah, for sure.
Who knows what's going to happen
in Texas?
Just because that person, even if he did molest that child, legally they're not going to let Cain just blast that dude. So
well, he also didn't shoot the molester.
Yeah, he shot the wrong guy.
Molester. He shot the alleged molester's dad.
He might have shot the dad because he was stopping him from shooting the son.
Well,
I wonder if it was like you said it was a moving car. I wonder if he like tried to shoot the car to like make them stop or some shit,
God.
and then that's why it hit the dad. Because it seems weird that he would aim at the dad, but I mean, who knows? Who knows?
I mean,
I don't want to guess.
But the dad probably. I would find it very difficult to believe that dad didn't know nothing about that kid and how that dude worked. Seems.
Oh, I don't know about that, man.
No.
Can't assume the dad knew that shit.
They always know something. They don't want to know everything, but they know. They know. Anyway, I hope everything works out for Cain because that is just a shitty situation all the way around, man. But
that's terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, what can you really do, man?
I mean, again, as a father of with my kid in a daycare, that is worst case scenario, worst nightmare possible. When your kid's in a daycare, of course, a thought occurs to you like my kid's in the daycare, like,
oh, I'd kill someone
every day.
I'd be in jail.
I mean, don't put me on that jury because I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to send him to jail for it.
Yeah,
it's just not going to happen. Like you don't touch little kids. Like you just don't.
I don't think you would make it through the vetting process to be on the jury for Cain Velasquez.
I had just had this conversation with my wife about the one thing I've not dreamt about, but I really want to do is cybercrime prevention for pedophiles. So like
cool.
Being the people that like go and pretend to be the kid online or whatever to like catch the sick bastards.
Oh, the worst.
I'm Chris Hansen.
Basically, like the guy that gets them to come to the Chris Hansen house. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
But like it just seems it's the one crime to me that I don't want to know why. It doesn't matter why you did it. Right? Murder, I think there's always a reason. Like one bad or not or whatever.
That's why Cain's in trouble. California is like, yay, pedophilia.
But yeah,
I shouldn't
that's the one thing I can't. There's no good reason. There's no reason for that at all. So I hope he figures that out. I hope it works out well for him.
Louis C.K. had the most amazing joke about pedophilia. Let me just tell it real quick because I think it was during his cold open when he hosted SNL once. So I don't remember how he got into it, some bit about pedophilia. And he was like, imagine being an adult person and knowing that this is so illegal and they still do it. And he goes, it must be really good. And the whole audience is like, oh, like mortified. And he goes, for them, not for us, not for you and me. And then people are just like, oh my, just losing their minds. And he goes, okay. And he goes, that's about how that joke is supposed to go. And everyone's like dying laughing. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Not my favorite joke I ever heard. I'd rather not joke about that shit.
Yeah, it's a bad situation, man.
For sure.
Moving right along, there are a couple of changes to some fights that have been announced already. Glover Teixeira versus Yuri Prochazka has been moved to UFC 275. Along with that, there are rumors of Valentina getting back in the mix against Talia Santos.
Oh, wow.
So that should be very interesting. There was also some talk about... Hang on one second here. Oh, there was some talk about some changes. So this upcoming weekend, there we had some changes to the fight with remind me. Islam
Rafael dos Anjos
right.
and
Rafael dos Anjos is fighting this weekend. Rafael Fiziev has been out due to COVID at this point, so they've been trying to figure out who to come in to relieve them. We landed on, excuse me, Renato Moicano as the replacement. That fight is going down at 160 pounds, but a bunch of people apparently put in their name in the hat, allegedly, Tony Ferguson being one of them. The legend Paul Felder was going to come from behind the commentary booth to just scrap at a moment's notice. So it's always great to see that stuff happen, but I would have been a lot more interested in the Islam Makhachev fight just for what it was. It would have been a great little solidifier for Makhachev that he deserves to be exactly where he is. And stylistically, it's the perfect fight for Makhachev.
And it's a grudge match. They've been talking shit to each other for a while.
Yeah.
I was pretty hyped when it looked like we might get that for a second.
Yeah. All right, going down the list with a couple more fight announcements. Shogun Rua versus Ovin St. Preux 2 has been added to UFC 274 on May 7th. Michael Johnson versus Alan Patrick has been added to UFC 274 on May 7th. I'm really interested to see how Michael Johnson comes back. I got to be honest.
Yeah, man, I missed that guy.
I've never really been a super big Michael Johnson fan because he has a tendency to just give up, which annoys the shit out of me. But I'm interested. I'm interested to see what he's got because he's talented, which is, I guess, why it annoys me more than anything. So
yes.
Eric Gonzalez is out against his fight with Devonte Smith. He will now be facing Ludovit Klein at UFC 272 this weekend. Diego Lima is also out of his fight against Miguel Baeza, which, in my opinion, was the gods saving that boy from an ass beating. Miguel Baeza will now be facing Andre Fiallo at UFC Fight Night on April 16th. I'm not sure what that does for Diego Lima's career because Diego had talked about retirement directly after the Miguel Baeza fight, that being his last fight. So I don't know if he takes one more, if it was a timeline thing where he didn't want to fight past a certain month or something like that, but he might take one more and then retire after that. We'll see. Charles Jourdain versus Lando Vannata. Alert. That fight is a banger. Do not miss that fight. Charles Jourdain versus Lando Vannata has been added to UFC Fight Night, April 23rd. Mark that one on your calendar. Brandon Royval versus Matt Schnell. Another banger. Add that one to 274, May 7th. That one's going to be fantastic. Mandy Boehm is out against Sabina Mazo. She will now be facing Miranda Maverick at UFC Fight Night, March 12th. And last but not least, Jennifer Maia versus Manon Fiorot has been added.
God, wow.
Fiorot has been
Dude,
added.
They moved Fiorot way up the ladder.
Jennifer Maia is getting that, or Manon Fiorot is getting that shot against Jennifer Maia. UFC Columbus, which is not that far away, March 26th.
She hasn't even beat a ranked fighter. What is Maia ranked? Like 3, 4?
Let's find out because I have it up.
I mean, she's looked amazing, and she's 3-0. But
Maia's
wow.
4. Yep.
I just can't believe they went that high up the ladder that quick. But hey,
Manon
find out,
Fiorot,
I guess.
She's right now is 13, so it would be number 4 versus number 13.
Yeah, wow.
And that's all I got for the Sphere for you today. Let's
Okey-dokey.
get into some pay-per-view.
Let's do it. All right. This coming weekend, boys, UFC 272, Covington versus Masvidal. Here we go. Let us work our way up the card. Let us start first with this matchup. Dustin Jacoby versus Michal Oleksiejczuk. That is a very difficult name to say. Yes, I might have practiced it a couple times before we started our show. Mark, let me start with you. What's your take? Jacoby versus Oleksiejczuk.
Yeah, so I'll just say about the card in general real quick. It says something about the depth and the fun on this card that I am like, and the main event specifically, that I'm like legitimately pumped for a pay-per-view that doesn't even have a title fight on it. So, kudos to them on that for making a card that, the general public seems to be that pumped for it that doesn't even have a title fight. So the more the UFC can do that, the better off they will be. But anyway, into this fight. First off, I cannot believe this fight is opening the night. this is a really good matchup of two guys who could pose problems for guys above them in this division. Neither of them is far from the rankings at this point. I should have given you guys the odds. Jacoby is minus 195. Oleksiejczuk is plus 160. So fairly close. Obviously, edge to Jacoby. I think in this one, Jacoby's kickboxing skill and ability to manage the range is what's going to make the difference. Oleksiejczuk is dangerous, but I just don't think he's going to find the opportunities that he needs against Jacoby. I think he's going to get mostly picked apart. So I will say Dustin Jacoby, UD.
Okay. Omar, what's your take?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think Dustin Jacoby just has more tools at this point than Hussar does. I like that. I like that nickname. But yeah, I just think Justin Jacoby has a lot more ways to get this done. I'm going to go with Justin Jacoby by unanimous decision.
Like it. Moving up the card in the lightweight division, Devonte Smith versus Ludovit Klein. Omar, let me start with you. What is your take and what is your pick for this fight?
Devonte Smith is a fantastic prospect. I'm super interested to see exactly what happens to him. He's had kind of an up and down career so far with the UFC, but the reality is they've all been aggressive fights. They've all either been do or die fights, which I personally love, better or worse, especially when he doesn't look like he's being completely outclassed. They are legitimately competitive fights that just end the wrong way. At some point, I think we continue to talk about that 50-50 like coin flip shit has to stop. Doesn't mean it's not fun to watch though. With that being said, Ludovit is a little bit more, generally speaking, he's a little bit more consistent, but recently he's also had his little string of bad luck. Having to pick on a dime, I'm going to go with Devonte Smith, and I'm going to go with him by TKO in the second round.
All right, Mark, give us your take on Devonte Smith versus Ludovit Klein.
Klein is the plus 150 dog here. Smith is minus 175. Klein is fighting up a weight class on short notice here. He's usually a featherweight, so he's coming in a bit smaller. He's 2 inches shorter, 4 inches less reach. I think Smith is probably the stronger fighter, maybe even the more athletic of the two. Klein can certainly hurt Smith. We've seen Smith hurt before, and Klein's got some power behind him, but Smith can even work in the grappling if he needs to, I would guess. So I think I'm going to lean toward a Smith decision. It just feels like he has more ways to figure it out in there.
Dude, okay. if you get Smith by decision, that's his first decision in his career.
Wow. I like it even more then. Let's go.
Okay. Moving on up in the flyweight division, Tim Elliott versus, I'm going to butcher this one, Tagir Ulanbekov.
Nailed it.
That was good.
Mark, start with you.
So in this one, Ulanbekov is a pretty significant favorite. He's minus 250. Tim Elliott is plus 200. There are going to be some fun scrambles in this one, as there is in most Tim Elliott fights, but Ulanbekov is looking to grapple, so I'm sure we're going to see even more. I'm torn on this one. I think I'm going to roll with the underdog. I have liked the recent form we've seen from Tim Elliott lately, which is weird to say this late in someone's career, but I feel like this James Krause pairing has worked really well. I know he lost his last one, but he was looking good in it. He won the 2 before that. And Ulanbekov, while he's 14-1 and he's 2-0 in the UFC, I just haven't been super impressed by anything he does in there. Like he kind of controls guys, he gets it done, but I don't know. I think Tim Elliott finds a way to edge it out. I think he's just crazier. I think he's going to probably have an advantage in the striking, and I just like the way he's looked lately. I'm going to say Elliott split decision, close fight.
Omar?
Yeah, I actually don't hate that take. I think Tim Elliott presents a lot of interesting awkwardness that's probably very different than what Ulanbekov is used to. The one thing I think is going to make the difference, though, is as good as Tim Elliott is in the wrestling, I don't think it's going to be enough to stop Ulanbekov from implementing his game. The one thing I have seen with Tim Elliott is when people are better at him in the wrestling game, they'll tend to keep his ass down. After the scrambles are done, after everything and the dust is settled, if Tim Elliott's on the bottom, he'll tend to unfortunately kind of get worked a little bit. His stand-up, I think, is where he'll have the best opportunity, and if he's able to keep it standing, Tim Elliott might have a great chance of winning that fight. I just don't necessarily see him doing that consistently throughout the entire fight. For that reason, I'm going to go with Ulanbekov by unanimous decision.
Okay. Moving up into the featherweight division, Brian Boom Kelleher is back in the octagon, taking on Umar Nurmagomedov. Kelleher is trying to make it 3 in a row. It's coming off of 2 wins, obviously. And Omar, let me stick with you. What's your take? What's your pick?
It's so hard to pick against a Nurmagomedov, especially one that is actually affiliated with Khabib and training with Khabib and learning the ways of the eagle. Brian Kelleher is no slouch by any stretch of the imagination. It's not somebody that I would look at and be immediately picking against. But the reality is Umar is undefeated right now. Khabib, the way he's coaching right now seems like he's got an in with the guys that he works with. And it just seems like to me that Umar has probably got the recipes to work his way through the division the same way that Islam's working through his. So for that reason, I'm going to go with Nurmagomedov. I wouldn't be surprised to see a submission, but I'm going to go with unanimous decision.
Mark, gives your take, gives your pick. Go for it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't hearing you.
Oh, I said give us your take, give us your pick.
So, yeah, I know that Umar is undefeated, and obviously that he is a Nurmagomedov. But I guess I forgot just how much hype was behind this guy since he's only fought once in the last, 2+ years.
Yeah.
But the man is minus 700 against Brian Kelleher.
That's crazy.
I mean, Lord, and Kelleher's plus 460, but Kelleher's a legit dude. So for Umar to be that big of a favorite, I guess he was even a more hype prospect than I remembered. It's hard to keep track of all the Nurmagomedovs. There's 2 in the UFC. Or even 3 at this point. There's 2 in Bellator, or maybe it's 3 there too. But there's a lot. It's the cousins, and it's hard to keep track of exactly who has the true hype out of them. But yeah, I guess Umar is one of those guys. But it's been a year off for him. He gets put in this showcase fight here on a pay-per-view card against a name in Brian Kelleher. And if he gets this done, I'm sure you're going to start to hear his name a lot more. But Kelleher's a dangerous dude. Umar does have a 5-inch reach advantage, so he can maintain the distance. He can work his kickboxing. He does have good striking. And on top of that, Kelleher has a hard time staying off the ground. He kind of just always ends up in these scrambles. So as much as I like him and I love to consider it, I can't not pick Umar. I think that Kelleher's style kind of plays into Umar's hands. He is the better wrestler and grappler. I think he ends up catching Kelleher in something by the time the fight's over. I'll say 3rd round sub.
Okay. Moving up into the prelims, we were just went through the early prelims. The fight that's opening the preliminary card in the women's flyweight division, Maryna Moroz versus Mariya Agapova. Whew, a lot of mouthfuls on this whole card,
Great pronunciation. Man. You're killing it. You're killing it.
Oh, my God. I'm sweating. Mark, let me stick with you. Moroz versus Agapova. What's your take?
Yeah, so we have a blood feud in the main event of this night, and we have a lower level blood feud right here. These 2 girls hate each other, literally want to kill each other. It has been bad blood boiling for a while. I won't get fully into it. There was accusations from Rose of drug use and not paying people from Agapova, and Agapova saying that it was all bullshit, and Moroz just got jealous of her, and so on and so on. There's a lot that goes into it. It's been over 2 years now. They've talked wild shit about each other, violent shit. And here we are. So Moroz is the dog. She's plus 170. Agapova is minus 210. I think Agapova is the better fighter here. To me, this feels a bit like a girl who goes in there and tries to outfight you, being Moroz, versus a girl who goes in there to fuck you up, being Agapova. I think she's just more violent. She's more willing to put it on the line. Not to mention, I think she's faster and more powerful. I think she's going to take Moroz out, put some damage on her. I'm going to say Agapova 2nd round TKO.
Omar?
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think Moroz does tend to fight a little bit more cautious than anything, which is interesting looking at the beginning of her career that she was just wrecking everybody. But ever since she really got into the UFC and got really deep into it, it's just been a lot of making sure that she doesn't lose. And she's even still been up and down in her career. She's not like she's undefeated in the UFC. But I think skill for skill, Agapova is just a better fighter. She's way more aggressive, way more violent. I think she has a lot more power in her hands as well. If it stays standing, I think Agapova is able to drop her. If it goes to the ground, she definitely has the ability to sub her. It just seems like all the paths to victory are in Agapova's favor. So I'm going to go with Agapova. I'm going to probably go with, especially because of the bad blood, I'm going to go with a KO in the third round.
Oh, baby. Okay. This is also an interesting card. There are a number of Slavic and Russian fighters on this card, especially on the undercard. But in this matchup, it is a Ukrainian taking on actually, I think Agapova is not Russian. I believe she is. Yeah, she's from Kazakhstan. Which is, I believe Kazakhstan is more of a neutral country, that one of the former Soviet states. So definitely
real quick on that same note, Brian Kelleher had said that he was going to come to the ring with the Ukrainian flag.
Oh.
And then he caught some shit for it because he's fighting, obviously, Umar Nurmagomedov. And people were like, dude, like, I get it that he's Russian, but it's not like his fault. He's nothing to do with it. And Kelleher was like, that I didn't even think about like my opponent. I just wanted to come out and support Ukraine. So he switched it, and now he's coming out with like a peace flag or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff, man. All right, let's keep going. In the light heavyweight division, Nicolae, Jesus, this whole card. I practiced
Need the assist?
One. Yeah, go for it.
Negumereanu,
that's right. Versus Kennedy Tsarukyan. Mark, why don't you go first?
Okay, so Negumereanu is plus 120 here. And Tsarukyan is minus 145, so real tight fight. This is probably the lowest level fight on this card, if we're being honest. It's odd for me to see this getting more of a spotlight than the Jacoby Oleksiejczuk fight in the same division, which is opening this entire card, whereas this one's all the way up here. So I don't really get that one. This fight itself is a bit of a coin toss, simply because I feel like you can't trust either of these guys to get it done. And Tsarukyan has a 5-inch height and 5-inch reach advantage, which is kind of making me want to pick him, but I don't know. I just don't feel comfortable doing that. There's something about Negumereanu's power and Tsarukyan's face that is making me nervous. Just feel like he hasn't been taking shots well lately. And maybe I'm wrong, because there was a time where he was showing some promise, but I don't like what I've seen lately. I'm going to say that he gets KO'd. Negumereanu, first round KO.
I like it. Omar?
Yeah, I feel like I have that instinct with Tsarukyan as well. Looking at it though, especially looking at his record, the last time that he got knocked out, the only time he's ever been knocked out, was that Dan Jung fight that he just came off of. Looking at that dude's record, Dan Jung just honestly might be that goddamn good.
He's good, but do you remember it was he blocked it and it still knocked him out.
But did you see the mass on Dan Jung? That man looked like he could elbow a brick wall. He looks like. Yeah. He looked like a strong, and that's what I mean. Like it might have just been you got caught with the wrong dude that eventually might be somebody real in that division that later on down the line will be like, that sucked for him. But you know what I mean? He's not like a world beater, right? Like I don't expect crazy things from Kennedy at this point, but at the same time, I don't think he's going to get run through. Like I think his last performance may have indicated what might be coming in the future. I think he's a lot more scrappy than people might remember. He does get tagged, and he gets tagged a lot, but he's not one of those guys that you can ever count out, because he'll literally knock somebody out the moment that they think that they're winning. So because of that, I'm going with Kennedy for this one. I just think I have a little bit more faith in his recklessness against somebody who may not be as skilled as the guy he just fought. So I'm going to go with him by TKO second round.
I also remember Tsarukyan, when he knocked out Olberg, he was getting pieced up that entire fight.
That's true. Olberg gassed bad, but he did survive the first round. You're right.
Okay, moving up into the women's strawweight division. Maryna Rodriguez versus Yan Xiaonan. Omar, let me start with you. Rodriguez is somebody who I believe all three of us are pretty high on this show. What's your take of this matchup?
Yeah, she's coming off that win against Mackenzie Dern. She looked really good against that win off Mackenzie Dern. She was able to What I think surprised me the most against that about that fight specifically was she was able to kind of hang with her on the ground at the very minimum, not to get her ass completely snapped, which I think everybody was kind of worried about. You know, if it goes to the ground, Mackenzie Dern's going to win that fight. If it stays standing, then. But it really didn't end up being that black and white, and it was a lot more competitive everywhere around. Well, it was a lot more competitive on the ground than we thought it was going to be. It was pretty much what we thought it was going to be striking. So I'm very interested to see what Rodriguez has in this fight. Jan is a decent fighter, but honestly, on paper, I don't really see what she brings to the table that's really going to present Rodriguez with any kind of difficulty. I really think it's just, if anything, it's really just a showcase for Rodriguez to really put it on Zan, make a statement, put something on her highlight reel that she can show over and over again. But as far as I'm concerned, it's Rodriguez's fight to lose. So I'm going to go with Rodriguez. If she's smart, if she's able to turn it up, I can see her TKOing her by the third round.
Mark, what's your take?
So this is a huge fight. It's kind of wild that it's this far down the card. If Marina Rodriguez wins this fight, she may be putting herself into a title fight against the winner of Rose and Carla, assuming that's getting booked. Has that still not been booked? What are we waiting for on that booking? But I'm assuming that's happening. And yeah, if Marina wins this one, she may very well be next. So it's kind of wild that it's not on the main card to me. But yes, Marina's the favorite. She's minus 265. Jan is plus 215. Jan was 6-0 in this division until she got turned back by Carla Esparza. Marina, obviously, we know she's been great. I'm Team Marina for sure. I have become a huge fan of hers. Xiaonan certainly has a lot of skills. I just trust Rodriguez to be the one that's able to bite down, that's able to make adjustments in there, to dog it out if it turns into a scrap, so on and so on. I trust her more in every way in this fight. I think Marina has it. I think she is going to be fighting for that belt soon, like I said, and maybe even winning that belt. I'm a big fan of hers. I think that she gets this done, probably ends up a decision, but yeah, Marina by clear decision.
Okay.
Real quick, Carla Esparza actually just posted something on her Twitter saying she's just waiting for some fight news. So the answer is no. They have not announced anything. She has no idea what's happening.
Lord.
Okay, let's keep going. In the feature bout of the prelims in the lightweight division, Jalen Turner takes on Jamie Mullarkey. Mark, let's start with you this time.
So Jalen Turner is the favorite here, minus 160. Jamie Mullarkey's plus 130, so another tight fight. I am just not a Jalen Turner guy. There are skills there. There's visible skills, so I'm not saying there aren't. But he strikes me as a guy who, if he can put it on you, he will. But if there's resistance, it kind of all changes. And there will be resistance from Jamie Mullarkey. Jamie Mullarkey is in there to scrap. The man is going to put it on you. He doesn't go away. He gets stronger as the fight goes on. And I just don't trust Turner in that type of fight. I think that when he meets resistance, he fades. And I think that's what's going to happen here. I'm going to say Jamie Mullarkey by third round TKO.
Omar, Turner versus Mullarkey. What's your take? Give us a pick.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think that Jamie Mullarkey is one of those guys that if a guy is, I think the only way you get Jamie Mullarkey out of there if you're striking with him is you've got to be a flashy, nasty striker. You got to be somebody who's able to nullify him with your striking, not just able to scrap with him, because that just won't work. Which is why he's lost against guys like Rafael Fiziev. Like Fiziev is like chef's kiss when it comes to Muay Thai. Jamie Mullarkey, however, does have the toughness to gut out a couple of shots here and there and then end up putting a big ass whooping on him later on. I just think that Jalen Turner probably has the more powerful shots. I just think that Mullarkey will have essentially the more effective shots in the end. So I'm going to go with Mullarkey by TKO second round.
Okay. And kicking off the main card of UFC 272 in the heavyweight division, Sergey Spivak takes on Greg Hardy, former NFL Pro Bowler turned MMA fighter. Greg Hardy, that is, coming off of back-to-back losses, back-to-back knockout losses, most recently getting brutally knocked out by our boy, Tai Tuivasa. And Spivak, the Moldovan, of course, he is coming off of a loss himself against the rising Tom Aspinall. Omar, let's start with you. What's your take on this heavyweight matchup?
Yeah, so I always have a difficult time trying to evaluate Greg Hardy because of how raw he was when he started. The continued improvements I feel like we expect him to have with each fight. But the reality is he's been knocked out twice, and he's been knocked out bad. He gets into these brawls with these guys and just coin flips them and has been coming out the wrong way. There hasn't really been a lot of game planning, and it seems like anyway in his last 2 fights, or hasn't been following the game plan, whatever that is. But he just hasn't had a lot of great performances. It's more than just he got caught. He's putting himself in positions to get caught, and it's not. You can't do that in the heavyweight division when everybody has a shotgun for a hand. So I think Sergey Spivak, even though he's lost to Tom Aspinall, at this point, losing to Tom Aspinall is that shit's going to happen, dog. More people are going to lose to Tom Aspinall. That's just what it is.
Yes, he's very good.
He's fantastic. And I think the 3 wins that he does have right before then are no sleepers at all. You know, especially the last one that he has. Alexander Oleinik is not a scrub by any stretch of the imagination. That's a real fight. And I think that each time Greg Hardy goes up against one of these guys, especially ones that have a lot more experience in them, I just don't see his wild style, crazy shit mattering in the end. So I'm going to go with Spivak by decision.
Mark, what's your take? Hardy versus Spivak.
So Spivak is the favorite, minus 210. Hardy is plus 170. Spivak definitely has more skills here. He's the better fighter. He beat Tai Tuivasa, which blows my mind to think back and think Tai lost to Spivak, but he did. Finished him too. But I have a strange feeling that Greg Hardy's going to knock him out. I don't know why. I can't even really give you a reasoning. If this thing ends up on the mat, Hardy is probably going to get subbed really quick. If we even enter round 2, that becomes even more likely because Hardy does not have the best gas tank I've ever seen. I just have this feeling the exchanges are going to be hot and heavy in round 1 because Hardy comes out and kind of goes at you right away. And maybe that lets Spivak dive for the takedown. But I think if it is striking, that he's going to be in a little bit of trouble potentially. I don't know. As I talk it out, I'm like, why wouldn't Spivak just take him down as soon as he threw a haymaker? But I don't know. I have this feeling Greg Hardy's going to knock him out. So that's what I'm going to say. Greg Hardy,
Okay.
round 1 KO.
Oh, baby. Greg Hardy back in the win column predicts Mark. Omar, give us your prediction.
Oh, I said Spivak by UD.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
You're good.
Lost track. I'm going to go Spivak by decision.
I was just going to say, we're on the main card, baby. You got to start getting in here.
Yeah, right. In the welterweight division, Kevin Holland versus Alex Cowboy Oliveira. Omar, let's start with you.
God, I love this fight. I love this fight so much. I trust Kevin Holland at this point.
Oh,
in a striking match, almost like 100%.
Disgusted.
I do. I trust him less when it comes to guys who are ground dominant until I see something different from him, which it sounds like we should eventually be seeing significant improvements in that department, hopefully. Alex Oliveira has had a rough go recently. That boy hasn't won a fight since July of 2020, and he's gotten his ass beaten every single one of those fights for the most part. The Nico Price fight was, I guess, less of an ass beating and more of a competitive back and forth, but still lost that fight. I don't see I see Kevin Holland being able to take a lot of these fights, talking shit to this man in the fight. Oliveira probably not understanding everything that Holland is saying, and yet still getting super pissed off that he's talking shit to him in this fight. I think Holland's able to kind of get his game going and probably takes Oliveira off of his, because we have seen Oliveira get his game, having his game kind of removed from him for various reasons. But I think Holland can get it done, and I think he does it in fun fashion. I think it's decision though.
Mark, go for it.
Holland's a big favorite here, minus 300. Oliveira is plus 230. Kevin Holland is obviously making his welterweight debut here, long awaited, where he's going to be a monster in terms of his size. In this one, he quotes only has a 4-inch height and 4.5-inch reach advantage, which doesn't really feel like an only, but at welterweight, he's going to have even more than that over most guys. It's just that Oliveira is a long welterweight himself. but that's still a big advantage Holland's going to have. We know his weakness, right? It's wrestling. It's getting ground down and controlled, but I don't think Oliveira has the strength or even the grappling style necessarily to accomplish that. I think that any grappling that happens between them is just going to feel much more scrambly. And don't forget, Kevin Holland is a black belt in jiu-jitsu. So as slick as Oliveira can be, I think Holland should be able to hang in the grappling. And I just think he's the better fighter here. I trust his power. I don't trust Oliveira's cardio as the fight goes on, or even his chin necessarily. I think Kevin Holland's going to put him out. I will say Kevin Holland round 2 knockout, and drop him. Follow-up shot is the one that puts him out. That type of deal.
That's a cool pick. I'm gonna go Kevin. I'm gonna go Kevin Holland by. No, I'm gonna go Kevin Holland by decision. Just going back to Omar's opening statement on this fight and my cringe. I'm sorry, Omar. What did you say? You said I trust Kevin Holland. I do not trust Kevin Holland. Let me make no mistake. I like Kevin Holland. I love Kevin Holland. I think he's a great watch, and he's a very talented fighter. Do I trust him? I do not. I just think that I think he fucks around too much in there.
Yeah.
And to Mark's point, I think, sure, if he's the bigger fighter. I think at this point in their respective careers, I think he is the better fighter and the bigger fighter. He should put him away. But I think he also might jaw at him for 12 minutes and then in the third round be like, I guess I didn't get the finish in this one. I'm going to cruise to a decision.
Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
The way you feel about him is based off of the attitude he has in his cage, right?
Yeah, man. He's great. He's hilarious.
But you may not enjoy the fact that he may be giving away a fight based off of his jawing when he could be doing something else. Right?
Yeah, I mean, sure.
Do you think that if he kept his mouth shut during the Derek Brunson fight, that fight would have went any differently than how it went?
Maybe. I don't know. Yes.
I think he gets mauled both ways.
You think he still gets mauled by Brunson?
100%.
Blonde Brunson?
100%. By just wrestling Brunson. That shit could have been dark-haired Brunson, and he still would have taken him down to hell. It didn't matter. He didn't have the skills for it. His ground game is just not – his wrestling game is not there. When he gets on the ground, he has a very good tendency of trying to throw up submissions, trying to work his way into a better position. But the reality is with certain wrestlers, especially like Brunson, who doesn't give a shit about looking cool, he will literally just press on his chest until he can't move, until he stops moving. And it just smothers his whole game.
It's the strong smothery guys. That's who Holland has a problem with.
Marvin Vettori. Do you think if he didn't say anything to Marvin Vettori that fight would have went any differently than the way it went?
That's a good point.
Every fight before that,
Vittori's
other than the Brandon Allen fight, he's fucked everybody up, jawing at them and the like. I love the way the kid fights because the way he fights is him. It's the same thing for me Nick Diaz and Nate Diaz. It's not some poser who's trying to look cool. This is Kevin Holland in the cage. It's probably the same way it is the same way Kevin Holland acts in the gym because we've seen those videos against random dudes. This is 100% authentic him, and I think it's how he has to fight. It's just him.
Okay.
I will say this. This is the put up or shut up fight for Kevin Holland. If he loses this fight, he matters significantly less than he did even a couple years ago. Especially it's changing fall off the cliff.
Especially changing divisions, because changing divisions is really gonna. The whole thing was, I think everybody knew that the middleweight division, especially with the wrestlers that were in there, were making it difficult. Right now, you've got a big size advantage at 170. You still have elite wrestlers at 170, but you should still be able to show something more than what you had at 185. And I think you're right. He has to perform for sure.
Right, and Oliveira is not that guy. He's dangerous. He's a test. But he's not that guy. And if he beats you, you're not that guy either.
Yeah,
for sure.
I agree.
Okay, moving on to the co-main event in the featherweight division. We have Edson Barbosa taking on Bryce Mitchell. What's his nickname again? Is it Thug Nasty?
Thug Nasty.
That's right.
Nasty.
It's not the co though. They saved the co. Dos Anjos is still happening.
Oh, it is still happening.
Yeah.
Okay, for a second I thought it was taken off and moved to a different card.
No. It's on.
Okay. We have Bryce Mitchell, undefeated, folks, 14-0 as a pro, coming off of a unanimous decision victory over Andre Touchy-Feely. And then we've got Edson Barboza, who really needs no introduction, owner of the most spectacular spinning wheel kick knockout in the history of life on Earth. Most recently coming off of a TKO loss at the hands and feet of Giga Chikadze. Mark, let me start with you. What's your take on this featherweight matchup of Barboza versus Mitchell?
Close odds here. Mitchell is the favorite. He is minus 160. Barboza is plus 130. This is an awesome fight. We don't get too many of these old school striker grappler matchups these days with modern fighters being as well-rounded as they are. But this is an old school style fight. Edson is going to try to keep it standing and find that KO shot. Bryce is going to try to drag it down and smother Edson until he finds a sub. And there won't be any surprises from either guy in this one. Both guys trained to stop what the other guy is going to try to do. And we're going to lock the cage door and we're going to find out who's better at it. I'm really torn. Part of me wonders if Bryce has the strength to beat Barboza in the way that he needs to do it. Yes, we've seen Barboza get out grappled before, but never by a featherweight. And honestly, only by big lightweights. Like the guys who have done it are Habib, who is Habib and is a big lightweight, and Kevin Lee, who's a huge lightweight. Beyond that, no one has really accomplished the grapple, smother Edson Barboza game plan. So if Bryce can do it, he will easily be the smallest guy to have done it. I love Edson. I've always been an Edson guy. I picked him against Giga and I was wrong there. I could see him, as I said, be strong enough, be able, his hips are strong. He's had good takedown defense in the past. Guys kind of just eventually get in there. It wouldn't shock me if he can do it. And on the feet, Bryce is at a big disadvantage. I mean, he's game. He'll get a big strike out of nowhere, that kind of deal. But in terms of the overall game, he is at a big disadvantage against Edson. He's in danger every second that fight is on the feet. But I just have a feeling that he is relentless enough in the way he chains his shots and he's such a sticky grappler that I think maybe he may lose round one as he tries to figure it out. I think he probably figures it out, gets inside of the start of round two, and the fight changes, and it kind of keeps going Bryce's way. I am going to say Bryce Mitchell, unanimous decision, maybe even split. I'll say unanimous in a back and forth, really good fight.
Okay. Omar?
So there's a couple of things that I keep thinking about in this fight. One is that we might see Barboza pull out a lot more jiu-jitsu than we've seen him have to pull out in quite some time. And I think it'd be interesting to see how effective his jiu-jitsu is at this weight class because he doesn't have these like overly heavy guys on top of him smothering him. He might be able to move and create angles a lot easier with guys that are this size as opposed to what they were at 155. That's one thing. The other thing is Bryce Mitchell is relentless. Bryce Mitchell sets a certain pace that we've seen Barboza drown in before. The thing that really leads me towards Barboza is the serious serious gap in experience. Not just the amount of fights. The amount of fights it matters, but it's not the full story. The resume that Barboza has, both wins and losses, are significantly more telling than the 14-fight journey that Bryce Mitchell has been on. Bryce Mitchell hasn't had that kind of adversity. He hasn't had the type of talent to go up against that Barboza has. It's not to say that Barboza automatically obviously wins this fight or styles on him or anything, but Barboza has been in there with some of the tricks that maybe Bryce thinks that he's able to pull out, or some of the things that Bryce maybe thinks that he can adjust to in the side of the fight. These are all things that not only has Barboza probably trained for, but has also experienced multiple times inside of the cage. It's just so hard for me to discount all the things that Barboza has been through, all the fights Barboza has been through, the champions that Barboza has fought. It's just... It just seems crazy to pick against that kind of experience, even though MMA is as fickle as it is. It can fluctuate either way at a drop of a dime. But it just seems to me like Barboza should have everything in the bag, regardless of what we've seen in terms of Bryce Mitchell's wrestling, to take him down, or to take him out, I should say. I'm going to go with Barboza. I'm going to go with Barboza by TKO round 2. I will preface, I will end this by saying I am concerned by one thing: Barboza shooting for fucking submissions when Bryce is trying to take him down. If this asshole goes for more than 2 guillotines, I no longer pick him. I reserve that right to remove my pick if he goes for 2 guillotines while getting taken down, because then he's not being smart, and the experience apparently just went out the window, because that's not what I signed up for.
Okay. I love both these guys. I love so much. Love watching both these guys. These both of them are must-see TV for me. I feel like this is Bryce's time, and I think the stage is set for him to have a career-defining win over a real, pretty much a legend in Barboza. Yeah. I'm comfortable calling him a legend.
I heard someone say that earlier today, and my brain went, legend? And then I took 3 seconds, and I went, yeah,
exactly. I was just going to ask you guys. I'm like, could we call him a legend? He's kind of a legend.
I never have, but like I don't really have a problem with it.
Yeah.
I think his legend status is he's kind of a legend.
Yeah.
But I think that Bryce is on the way up. And I just have a feeling that he's going to execute his will. I think he's going to have a real true breakout performance. And I'm going to call Bryce Mitchell by submission in the second round.
Big. That'd be big.
Here we go. Moving on up into the actual co-main event. I'm so sorry. Because it was saved by Renato Moicano. So we have RDA, Rafael dos Anjos, taking on his countryman, Renato Moicano, in the co-main event happening in the lightweight division. Moicano, of course, Moicano, of course, coming off of that stinging recent submission victory over Alexander Hernandez just a few weeks ago. He's bringing a 2-fight win streak into the octagon. RDA, on the other hand, has not fought in a minute. His last win was over the now retired Paul Felder back in November of 2020 at UFC Fight Night, Felder versus Dos Anjos. Omar, let me start with you. What's your take on on Dos Anjos versus Moicano?
Mark, remind me, that Paul Felder fight was Paul Felder's fight to win, right? Like, he won that fight and they just screwed him on that one. Was that the one?
No.
No?
That was the one that Paul Felder took on like 3 days notice or whatever it was when he came out of retirement, because I forget who fell out of the fight, and he got manhandled the entire fight.
Okay.
Paul Felder had already retired.
Oh yeah. He came out. He came out the booth. He was supposed to be on commentary.
That's right. Yes.
And he was training for a triathlon, so his weight was low-ish. He still had a big cut, and he stepped up and took the fight, even though he said he hadn't even been training MMA in like 6 months or more than that. I forget what he said. And RDA just grappled the shit out of him the whole fight. But that's the one where Felder gave that speech after the fight, post-fight, about weight cuts and look what I just did, and there's no excuse for missing weight and blah blah blah. Remember that great speech?
Yeah, I do. That it's all, yes, it is all.
But that's why it was crazy that we almost had the same exact thing again, out of retirement again, a few days notice again. If they had given it to Felder this time, but obviously they didn't.
And Paul Felder was like already cutting weight in like anticipation that they might just have him fight against this guy. But anyway, Rafael dos Anjos at one time was very difficult to pick against. Now I can't pick him anymore. I just don't trust his game like on any level. And that's not to say that he isn't talented. He's a very good striker. He has grappling credentials. I've seen him grapple very well, but whatever it is about him, he makes terrible decisions inside of the octagon a lot. And I just don't like his fight IQ. If I had to point it to something specifically, his fight IQ is not my favorite. And I don't like the decisions that he makes. With that being said, I do enjoy Renato Moicano's fights. He's had a bit of an up and down recently as well, but there's something recently about this last run that he's putting together, even apart from the Fiziev fight, which Fiziev is Fiziev at this point. I mean, that who knows what's going to happen with that man. But the fights that he's been putting on lately have just been a beautiful combination of his striking and his grappling that it just seems like he's found his groove. So I'm going to go with Moicano to pull this upset off against RDA. And I'm going to go with a submission for round 3.
Okay, Mark, what's your take?
I respect that pick a lot. RDA is the favorite here, -180. Moicano is +150, but that's pretty tight odds, especially for a guy who's coming in as a late replacement. So that tells you something. In a way now, obviously we had Dos Anjos Fiziev, which was very striker versus grappler. I mean, Dos Anjos can strike, but you got to think he would have leaned on his grappling in that fight. Now we've kind of ended up with like almost a mirror match. Moicano has a 3-inch height and 2-inch reach advantage, so a little bit there, which is wild for a guy who was a featherweight against a guy who was a welterweight for a long time to have that advantage. But Moicano's a long dude, Dos Anjos not so much. But both of these guys can be sneaky dangerous with their striking. They can both be very slick and opportunistic with their grappling and their submissions. They're both comfortable fighting everywhere. They can scramble well. RDA's chin is probably the better of the two still, despite him being far deeper into his career and 5 years older. But he was preparing for a guy who was entirely a striker, like zero jiu-jitsu to worry about at all from Fiziev. And now he's fighting a guy whose main goal is to submit you. So it's a big mental adjustment to make. Granted, RDA was probably looking at himself trying to submit Fiziev as an avenue to victory. So you'd like to think he's still been working the jiu-jitsu. It's not like it's something he would have ignored in this camp, but still it's a big switch in terms of style of opponent. I'm very torn. I could see Moicano break through here. I really could. I've been a fan of his. But RDA hasn't really shown signs of a true fall off yet to me. He's not like the elite guy that he was, but he still only loses to elite guys. And I'm just not sure. And most of those elite guys were significantly heavier than him and heavier than Moicano. So I'm just not sure I'm ready to think that Moicano is that level. And maybe this is the one where we're like, oh, RDA, not quite the same. It could be. It wouldn't shock me, but I'm just having a hard time picking Moicano with the short notice, having to shed the weight in a hurry. All that concerns me. They left this as a 5-round fight, which it was supposed to be against Fiziev. So now Moicano has to fight 5 on the short notice if it goes that long.
Damn.
I'm going to side with the veteran in the end. I think that he will find a way. I'm going to say Dos Anjos 4th round TKO.
Ooh. Omar, you're up.
I did not realize this shit was still 5 rounds.
Yeah, because Dos Anjos Fiziev was only 5 rounds because remember it was supposed to main event like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then they moved it. I forget why they moved it. Something with Fiziev's visa. And they left it as 5 because it was supposed to be the main event of a fight night.
Right.
And then I was surprised to see this, but they left it as 5 now. I thought it was definitely going to go to 3 with the short notice, but apparently not.
That's wild.
Mike, we got?
I like Moicano.
Wow, both of you guys.
Yeah, I like Moicano. I think, harkening back to what you had just said before, Mark, I feel like it's been a minute since RDA has fought, and he has a lot of miles on him, and it just seems like Moicano is on the rise, and he's actually not that much younger, but he's younger. He seems like the fresher fighter, and I think he has sneaky power, and he's going to sting RDA and pounce on him and get the sub. I'm going to go Moicano by submission in the 3rd.
Tell you what, subbing RDA would be a big statement for Moicano.
100%.
Well, I think he's going to sub him because he's going to be stung so badly.
That's where I'm at too. I'm pretty sure he's able to like either knock him down or at least like get him on wobbly legs and then kind of work him from there. But Dos Anjos, the thing that I think is going to be the most difficult tool against Moicano or for Moicano against RDA is going to be the leg kicks of RDA. Like there's everything on paper to say that Moicano's legs are going to be destroyed by the end of that.
That's a great point.
Destroyed.
Okay, let's get into this, man. We're at the main event. Sorry, bit my lip before. That's why I'm not drinking tonight. I had to take a moment.
Mike's mouth is too excited for this.
Too excited, man.
Too much talking. Too many events.
Okay, Covington versus Masvidal. Before we get into our breakdown and picks, Omar, could you give us and give our listeners and viewers a brief history of the epic beef between these two men?
Indeed. Let me get you some teacups here. You have a little tea party, huh?
Omar's in heaven right now.
Omar made a PowerPoint.
Listen, this.
Omar got so jazzed by the UFC countdown for this main event,
dude. This is their
countdown was so good.
It's
if you
probably
haven't watched
so
the
good.
UFC countdown for this yet, oh baby, watch it.
It was hilarious that they even put anything else on the countdown because like the countdown video I think was 45 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
The Jorge Colby segment was like 38 minutes.
Yeah.
And then they left the rest of it. I don't even know who the end of it was actually. Now that
it was Michal and Barbosa.
Was it?
I guess I'm
right.
assuming they had footage on Dos Anjos and Fiziev, but they chopped it out and just ended it.
But the reality is that this kind of grudge match, this bad blood, this level of bad blood, I really don't think has been seen since Tito versus Liddell.
I would agree.
We've seen bad blood. We've seen Conor Khabib and all these
Jones
other kind of
DC,
fights, but not the deep seated like we had history, we were kind of boys and all this kind of shit. Training partners and this, that, and the other. We haven't seen it this deep in a long, long time. And it's kind of crazy that this is where it's at. The more I looked into it, the more it was just so whoever's knife went into the back first, just shame on you, sir. So let me break down a little bit of the timeline for you because you kind of have to, in order to fully appreciate the fight, you have to understand the history and the genesis of this entire beef. So originally, Colby was brought into ATT by Dan Lambert, who is basically the president of ATT, right? They have generally a program where they did anyway, had to have a program where they had high-level wrestlers from out of collegiate areas come into their gym and basically raise the wrestling level of the fighters in their gym who were primarily strikers. And essentially there was like a give and take when it came to that stuff. Wrestlers would learn from the strikers and whatever else. This had been going on for ATT for the longest time. It was the program that Dan Lambert had basically founded ATT on. And now obviously when you look at guys from ATT, you see some of the best guys, people like Dustin Poirier, Joanna Jędrzejczyk is currently training there. Amanda Nunes was there, so on and so forth. They really had a program that worked beautifully, and Colby profited from it. When he first moved down to Florida to start training with ATT, one of the first people that he met there was Jorge Masvidal. Masvidal then introduced him to his personal striking coach, Paulino Hernandez, and was like, yo, this is Colby. This is my boy. He's helping me out with the wrestling. He's a very good fighter, very good wrestler. Like, let's make this work. And Paulino started training him and it became his striking coach during that time. Even before Colby was in the UFC, Jorge was in his corner. He was there supporting him for every fight that he was at, cheering him on, all that stuff. Paulino Hernandez, to let you know, is an old school Cuban exile. And he's a pioneer of kickboxing and of Taekwondo back in Cuba. He was part of the national team in Cuba. So there's real credentials to this guy. This is not some random dude that he found off the street. There are real credentials to Paulino Hernandez and real gains that Colby found during that time. Colby debuted in the UFC in 2014, and he debuted against, I forget exactly who he debuted against, but this was during the Bisping versus Kung Lee card, which, if you haven't seen that fight, that was actually a pretty damn good fight. But back to the point. During the debut, you can go back, you can watch those fights. You can see Jorge in his corner, always there, present, accounted for. Okay. He wins 3 in a row during that. After his debut, he runs into Warlley Alves. Warlley Alves submits him. That's his first loss in the UFC. Then he goes on to the winning streak that we basically, all know him for, right? Running through guys in the division, eventually getting to people like Damian Maia. Damian Maia was where the persona of Colby Covington started. He basically must have been watching Chael Sonnen videos before that fight and basically decided to legitimately rip off Chael Sonnen's shtick. And after the Damian Maia fight, started doing like, you know, Brazil's a bunch of filthy animals, and what was the other one? Oh, and Brazil is a dump and all this other nonsense, right? He's even said it in multiple interviews back then. I think he says a lot of it less now, but he's definitely talked about it before. He was like, he didn't feel, and I don't think this was confirmed by the UFC. I don't think anybody from the UFC ever said they were going to cut him from the UFC. However, according to Colby's story, the UFC was probably not going to re-sign him after his contract was over. And it was because he wasn't an entertaining fighter and they didn't appreciate his skill set and, you know, his wrestling pedigree and all this other stuff. That's what his claim is. And as a result, he decided to create a persona that made people watch him, for better or worse. And that was where the genesis of it was during the Damian Maia fight. The beef apparently really got underway, and Jorge apparently has recently been talking like that there had already been some tips about how Colby had talked about his family and just sort of seeing signs that Colby may not be like the straight dude that he thought he was. I don't really put too much stock into that because that's now that he's saying that, and like he just doesn't fucking like him now, and that's totally fine. But the stuff that is confirmed from even back then through interviews and stuff like that is during the after he won the fight with Damian Maia, he got a shot at the interim title against RDA. When he got that, that was when the MAGA persona started. And then he took on the Donald Trump stuff, wearing the MAGA hat, taking advantage of that whole situation. And that garnered him an entirely different following. He beat the shit out of RDA. And then we kind of went from there. The RDA fight, he was supposed to make, according to the Athletic Commission, it's been reported that he made $350,000. He made a deal with Paulino, none of which was ever on paper. They were all handshake deals, that he would give Paulino 5% of his purse that he was making for the RDA fight. Basically, I think he gave Paulino $5,000 for that fight. Colby basically says, I didn't get paid $350,000. I got paid half of that. I don't know how true that is. That sounds like complete and utter bullshit, personally. It sounds like he paid taxes and expected him to just take 5% of what he paid for after taxes, which is not how any of that works. But regardless, $5,000 isn't 50% of $175,000 anyway. So he still owes the man money as far as I'm concerned. It sounds like Hernandez kind of already had the inclination that he wasn't going to pay him, and it didn't really sound like he gave a shit. He finished training him for that fight and basically said, like, I'm done with him after this fight. But he finished the job before he cut him off. Jorge paid his trainer out of his own pocket for what Colby owed him and basically said, Colby's dead to me. And that was essentially the straw that broke the camel's back, and that's really where the bad blood started, because Jorge started talking about it with people at the gym. Colby started talking. Colby didn't like that he was talking about it, started calling him a bitch. They started jawing at each other, and basically every time that they were in the gym, they were going after each other. Not to mention that other people in the gym, Brazilian fighters in the gym, didn't appreciate the fact that Colby was just running his mouth about Brazil, whether it was fake, persona, whatever it was. It's what he did. He didn't like it. They didn't like it. And they were all basically like, it's on site whenever we see Colby. It did get to a point where both Jorge Masvidal and Colby Covington got kicked out of the gym. Where when we were talking about it earlier, like before we hopped on the call, we were discussing like, I wonder who's telling the truth. I wonder who's not. Like, you know, do we really think Colby is really in the wrong here? Whatever. To me, the character of a man in these types of situations is all you can really go off of, right? We'll never really know 100%. There's his story, Colby's story, and then there's the truth somewhere in the middle. But the reality is that when you talk about a character of a man, that to me is what signifies who should be believed in the first place, right? People from ATT all literally, after Jorge got kicked out, all started not coming into the gym because they were going to train with Jorge. It got to the point where there was nobody really in the gym, none of the top guys in the gym, because they were all going out to train with Jorge and his coach. And so as a result, Dan Lambert got beaten into submission and had to let Jorge back into the gym. That kind of teammate and camaraderie is what Colby, I don't think, will ever have. And it's because of the way that he seems to treat people, and he seems to be the way that he carries himself. Jorge Masvidal has never given me the inclination that he's that type of person. He's got his shit that I'm sure people don't like. Nobody likes anybody 100%. That's not the point. The point is Jorge has been consistent and he's been himself the entire time. Colby has kind of shown that he's a bit of a sellout. As soon as he had the idea that the UFC wasn't going to want him, he was like, I'm going to do literally whatever it takes for people to like me or to watch me at the very least.
Yeah.
And he did what he needed to do.
To be in the headlines. Yeah.
But as a result, he broke a lot of ties, burned a lot of bridges, and seemingly ruined a friendship that was very, very much real, as far as anybody can tell.
Yeah, for sure.
So there is a ton of bad blood here. They have been boys, it seems like, since 2011, leading up all the way basically up until it all went to shit in like 2017, 2018.
Okay.
That's what I got for you.
Very well done.
Sir. Thank you, sir. That's what we do here, folks. We provide value. So now when you watch this Saturday night, you'll know.
Watch the countdown, too. If you
Also watch the countdown.
Yes.
For sure. Mark.
All right.
Let's break down this matchup from a stylistic fighting standpoint and ultimately give us your pick.
All right. So Colby's the favorite here, minus 340. Jorge is plus 260.
I thought it would be closer.
Yeah, I thought it'd be a little closer. I want to pick Jorge, man. I really do. I love the guy. And my guess is that he's probably in the right in this beef. I mean, who knows? But hearing Dustin Poirier talk about Colby the way he does and say that he won't even fight him in a cage because if he ever fought him, he's going to jail because he's trying to kill him, makes me think that Colby's not the greatest dude. Poirier, for those that don't know, is also a member of ATT and has very much sided with Jorge during this. So hearing things like that makes me assume it's Colby who was in the wrong here. Again, who knows? But I tend to believe Jorge. Would love to pick him. Jorge, I apologize.
Uh-oh.
Not only do I think Colby wins, I think Jorge breaks. I don't see how Jorge keeps Colby off him. Jorge will be live, especially early in the fight. He'll be dangerous. He'll stuff some takedowns. He does have underrated takedown D. He'll be active on the ground. He always is. He'll land his shots standing. But overall, I just don't see how he wins the fight. I think Colby has a great chin, so it would have to be something really devastating to put him out. I think Jorge is coming in very emotional, whereas I expect Colby to be the one more focused on implementing a game plan. And I just think Colby is that good. I think it's easy to forget the wrestling because we haven't seen him do it against Usman recently, but I think it's a major factor here. I think there's a lot of takedowns, clinch work, Jorge getting taken down, maybe getting up against the cage, dragged back down again, getting frustrated. Maybe he's making some faces to the crowd or to the ref. I think Jorge just doesn't have the room to work that he wants to have. I think as the fight goes on, the takedowns start to become a little easier and a little easier. And I think Jorge just starts to mentally break a little bit when he realizes that he can't stop it and that he wants to hurt this guy so bad and can't do it. I think that fucks with you to come in as wound up as he has and to get repeatedly taken down the way that I expect him to. I think it's a hard pill to swallow. I think he starts to wilt in the later rounds. I debated saying he gets finished, either TKO or like a rear naked choke, but I respect Jorge too much in that no one ever finishes him inside the cage other than that ridiculous shot from a man named Usman. So I'm going to land on Jorge seeing the bell, but I don't think he likes the cards. I'm saying 49-46 Colby in a statement performance.
Omar.
Yeah, it's on paper it's a terrible fight for Jorge Masvidal. There's I will say something that's probably controversial. I don't think Covington has the greatest wrestling. I don't really think his wrestling is really that fantastic. I think where his wrestling excels is his ability to chain wrestle and use his pace to take advantage of people who are basically never balanced properly by the time he ends up taking them down. But if we look at him wrestling, I think there's a reason he didn't wrestle Usman, and it's because his wrestling is not better. I think that his wrestling skill for skill is not fantastic. But the pace that he puts on is, I think, where he excels. Also, his ability to mix things up, right? He has a great ability to throw strikes and get in on a double leg takedown right away, leaving the person basically like still fighting the hands by the time Colby is around their waist and under their legs. That's where he excels. His wrestling specifically, though, is really not that impressive, in my opinion. There's going to be I think there will be a lot of opportunity for Jorge, especially early. But I do think that there is a large chance that, especially once it does start going to the ground, that it becomes more and more difficult for Jorge to find a way back into the fight. I don't necessarily think, I think if it does go that route, I actually think it ends up worse as far as the bad blood is concerned, because Jorge is not going to feel like he got beat. He's just going to feel like Colby won the scorecards, right? But like holding him down is not going to beat a bad blood finisher. Like unless he beats the shit out of Jorge while he's on the ground, or like breaks Jorge's arm or chokes Jorge all the way out or something like that, this is not going to even be remotely over. There's not going to be a pin in any of this. And who knows? They might not be done even if one does knock out the other, but there's going to be so much jawing back and forth if basically Colby sits on him for 5 rounds, which is a very big possibility. I don't think Colby has hands at all to hurt Jorge.
Oh.
I think we kind of said that about Usman, though, and we fucking learned real quick that wasn't the case. But Colby does not have Trevor Whitman as his coach, so I'm still okay saying that Colby has pillow hands. What concerns me about Masvidal, though, is the opportunities I think he's going to give Colby in the takedown when he throws hooks. Jorge as a striker is going to want to throw powerful hooks. He's going to want to load up on those hooks. He wants to break Colby's face. The problem is short of that switch, he has like a beautiful switch left hook or switch right hook, depending on how he likes to throw it. But that switch hook is probably the fastest shot that he has in his arsenal. Other than that, that shit is so telegraphed that I can't see Colby not ducking under those shots and just going in for a takedown. I can't tell you how wrong I want to be. I can't tell you how much I want Colby to literally put that kid inside of some kind of box somewhere. But I just don't see it necessarily happening. I pray for the miracle, but the reality is I think Colby does it by decision.
Okay. Mark, you were going to interject?
Oh, I was just about to say before that I feel like Colby is not a layer honor. I feel like he's always going. So I feel like that's not a big concern. But
I agree with you, gentlemen. I see this fight going the distance. I don't see Colby flatlining Masvidal, and I do see him weathering Masvidal's bigger shots. I think it is likely that Masvidal could hurt him. It is. But I think he's going to apply his patented Covington smothering stand-up offense, and he's going to cruise. I think he's going to cruise to an easy decision victory and frustrate Masvidal. And I think, Omar, I think you are exactly right. I think the beef will be alive and well at the end of those 25 minutes.
Yep. All you're going to hear in the post-fight interview is, man, that charlatan didn't want to fight me. He just wanted to take me down. He wanted to hump me. He's probably going to yell out somewhere, how does my dick smell? It's going to be all kinds of
for all week.
Yeah, it's
going to be really cool to see them actually hug post-fight, but I'm sure that's not going to be happening.
Probably if they hug at the end of this fight, the number one headline will be, was this a ruse? Have we all just been bamboozled for the last 2 years?
I don't know.
Things happen when you fight people, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And if it does turn into a real scrap or a war, I think the chance goes up that they might hug it out.
If it's a war, yeah, fair.
Yeah, for sure.
If it's anything like Tito and Chuck, though, they might hug it out, say good fight, and then by the time they get to the cameras in the back, they're all selling them.
Like, no.
I mean, that's Colby's MO, so yeah.
Exactly. Well, boys, the picks are in, which means that we have one thing left to do, and that is some trivia. Before we get into the trivia, folks, comment below on YouTube with your picks for UFC 272 Covington versus Masvidal. We want to hear them. And then let us know if you think we are dead wrong about any of our picks or if we're spot on. Let us know. All right, boys. Let's end with 2 trivia questions relating to our main event competitors. Question number 1. Colby Covington's professional MMA record stands at 16-3. Who are his 3 losses to?
Kamaru and
Yeah.
Worley Alves.
Kamaru twice and Alves once.
Damn it. You guys are hard. I figured you'd get the 2 Kamaru losses, but
I'll always remember that Worley Alves one. That one was crazy. That's like Alves' whole claim to fame.
It was also it was in the breakdown of my little timeline there. So
Yeah, it was.
that's,
Honestly, I feel like Worley Alves has like no other quality wins. That's like his thing that he beat Colby Covington.
He's had a rough go, Worley Alves.
Yeah.
All right. Question number 2. It's fucking hard to make questions for you guys. Who was Jorge Masvidal's first career loss to? I made this multiple choice.
Okay.
Was it A, Rafael Sunsao, B, Joe Lozon, C, Paul Rodriguez, or D, Eve Edwards?
Who was C?
Paul Rodriguez.
I don't even know who that is.
Me either. I think I'm gonna go with Joe Lozon.
I feel like I know that he beat Lozon. I know that he fought Lozon.
What
were the other 2 choices? Rafael Sunsao, which is wild.
By the way, he did fight all 4 of these guys.
He
And
fought
who
a
was the other?
Sunsao?
Well, I guess he was a lightweight, and Sunsao spent a little time at lightweight. I guess it's not that crazy. It feels crazy now because it's a welterweight and a featherweight.
Yeah.
Or even, wait, Sunsao ended up as a bantamweight. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow. Yeah. All right. You're right. That is crazy.
What's D?
Who was it? The Rodriguez guy who I don't even know who that is, so I'm not picking him.
And
Lozon, Sunsao, and who's the other one?
Eve Edwards.
Eve Edwards.
Ooh, Eve Edwards.
You know, I don't know if that reverse triangle was the first loss on his record. And I'm trying to, like, fucking both Eve Edwards and Joe Lozon could pull off reverse triangles. And I don't know. I'm trying to, I don't even know if I'm making the right connection because I don't even know if that is his first loss.
Okay, so where I'm at, I'm 99% sure he beat Eve Edwards. I feel like I'm looking at that fight in my brain. I think it's one of the ones I watched over COVID. I'm not picking the Rodriguez dude. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he lost to Lozon. The Sunsao one just seems wild. I'll say Lozon.
Omar?
Yeah. Watch him have lost to this random ass Paul Rodriguez dude. Too. Watch. I'm gonna go with Joe Lozon.
The answer is A, Rafael
Get the
Sunsao.
fuck out of here. Where
Is Masvidal's
Wow.
first career loss.
Wow. We should have known that was it just for the randomness of him being included. Wow. Good for you, Rafael Sunsao.
2005. Fucking hell.
You just looked it up?
Yeah.
For a promotion.
What
called
organization
Full
was
Throttle.
that in?
Full Throttle 1.
Full Throttle 1.
Wow.
Might have been
Georgia.
the only one.
This was in Georgia. This is when he was still on the local circuit because he was either
At-
in Florida or in Georgia.
At lightweight?
It was.
Yeah, at lightweight.
Wow, so Sunsao was fighting Jorge at lightweight. Wow.
I don't know what he
That was a good
fighting.
one. That was a hard one.
Thank you. Congratulations to me for finding a question that was right in that sweet spot, baby.
Oh, so he did beat Lozon.
And he did
I knew
lose
he
to this
beat
fucking Paul
Lozon.
Rodriguez
I should have
dude.
stuck with that. Yeah, Paul Rodriguez. Who are you, bro? Let's see.
Oh, the inverted
Not a
triangle
great-
was Toby Imada. I would have never remembered that guy's name.
Not a great record for Paul Rodriguez. Wow. All right. The sun's out.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you. Well, folks, that just about does it. One last time to our listeners and viewers. If you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and like and subscribe. Of course, that'll help us out a ton. But nothing will help us out more than you thinking of that special someone in your life who loves MMA that you know of, who might not know about our show. Go ahead and send them the link to this episode. All right, nothing's going to help us out more than that. And with that, boys, any parting shots?
Yeah. Be a good friend. Share our show.
Oh, I thought you were going to say not like Colby.
Oh, well, yeah, dude, that too. Don't be a piece of shit like Kobe. Separate note.
Mark?
Let's wrap this baby.
All right. See you guys next week.
Peace.